Good morning, everyone, and welcome you all once again to the webinar on Revit modeling. So today our topic is about design options in Revit. So you might have heard about design options, but this is going to take you to this session is going to take you through design options completely, and you will be able to see what you can do with it and how you can play around with design options and how to finalize different designs and schemes. So, you can use design options, to explore multiple design schemes as the project develops. Okay, for you know to better understand design options, design option in Revit actually helps you to explore the different options of for various parts of your project. So when I say various parts, you can see that I have classified that various and parts here. So various is like, for example, you can have four different variations, or like three different variations for your kitchen layout or for your lobby layout, entrance lobby, or something like that. So these are the various options. Maybe one I have it for my lobby, one I have it for my kitchen, one design scheme I'll take it for my bedroom. So it's like these are the various things. And parts is basically the small and distinct parts, what you or the elements of your scheme. For example, when I say an entrance lobby, maybe the lobby might have a specific feature or maybe a component, something like that, which changes your options, design options, from one particular design option to other option. So the various parts is, we need to be very careful on that. So because you're going to have various schemes, and you'll be having it as various parts here. And if you look at that, moving ahead to understand it more better. So when to use a design option? So this is a very important thing you need to understand, and where to use design option, and when to use design option. If you're looking at to understand whether you want to have a building to be circular or rectangular, or then design option is not applicable at that stage. And for that stage, you need to use massing. Massing is actually defines the shape and form of your building model, whereas design option is for more smaller and distinct elements of your project. So you can have multiple design schemes based on the project, and you can have multiple design schemes I know as and when the project develops. So let's move ahead, and I'll tell you like what these design options are and how this is going to work with. And when working with design option, you need to consider two things. One is the option sets and the options. So option sets, what are option sets and what are options? Say, if you look at the example here, there might be multiple set of options, something like structure, roofing, maybe I can have something like a layout. There might be different options sets. These are option sets. For example, here you can see that I have a structure option set and a roofing option set. So the structure is basically the the basic structure, what I'm going to build with, and the roofing is the another option set, like for the roofing element. So, and within these options sets, you have different options. You can see that in the example. There is something called as a brackets and beam, and for the structure, and for roofing, you have louvers and sunscreen. So, and option sets and options are, it's like this. It's like different categories, and within that category, you have multiple subcategory kind of. So let's quickly get into the working of design options. So let me just I have a building here for this particular design options. So you can see that. Let me just show you the different views which we are having here. So I have a couple of floor plans, elevations, and 3D view here. Now, okay. So now let's say my client wants to have a temporary roofing structure to be given for this, or to be used, or to be done for this particular open space or the open terrace. So it has to be a temporary structure which can be removed, or I don't want that to be done with a permanent structure. So what we can do is we can create different design options. And in this, my client, he he is not able to come up with some idea. So he tells me, like, he wants to have pergola, sunshade, or roof terrace kind, and he is specific to some materials also. Maybe he says, I want to have more kind of a fabric roof, or kind of semi-open type of roof. So these are some ideas what my client is giving to me, and so based on that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create certain design options, and I'm going to finalize it with my client, which option would be better for this particular project. Okay, so first time when you're working with design option, yes, you need to get into the manage tab here, where you'll find the design options. So in design options, so when I open that, it opens up to a a new dialog box, where you can see there is a main model which is we are working currently, and then you have option sets and options. Right now I don't have any option set or any options, and the current model which we are working now is the main model. Now design options are like additional models within your current project. So what you have to do is, first, let us say I want to create a new set of options, or maybe the option sets. So I'll click on this new here. Now it creates an option set one with a primary option in that. Now you can see that I have now the options are like highlighted now. Earlier they were not highlighted. Now you will be able to see with the options. Now if I want, I can add additional options within this one, within this option set here. So now let's say I want to add a new option set, saying, yes, I'll go with the new. Now you can see that I have an option set, and then I have an option which is primary, option one which is primary, and option two which I added now. So now I can specify names for these elements. Now when I select this option set, I can go rename this option set here, or I can accept this primary element here which is there, which I'll tell you later what it is. Okay, and then you have new, where I can create additional new option sets, and delete is to remove the option sets if I don't want them. So now let's say I want to rename this. I'll go and rename this as my structure. Okay, so this is going to be the basic structure of my semi-covered terrace, or a temporary roof structure here. Okay. Now, for this option one, I need to define a naming for that, for the option one. So what I'll do is I'll say for that option one, I can name it as we name them to brackets, steel brackets, which I'm going to use. And maybe the next one, I can rename it as beams, or maybe a wooden beam. Okay, now let's say this, I'll rename it as steel brackets, so that it gives more, you know, it gives more of an understanding now. So I have steel brackets and then a wooden beam for my structure part. Now I'm going to add a new option set here. So where I'm going to say this option set is going to be called as the roofing part, okay, which is going to come on top of the structure. And for that, what I would do is I need to add a new option within that. Maybe I'll say this option one, I'm going to rename it as louvers, or maybe okay, you could have said pergola. Okay, fabric roof, pergolas. Okay, so now let's say louvers here, and this one I would say I want that to be renamed as sunscreen or a fabric roof. Okay, so maybe uh, I could have named it as pergola and fabric roof here. So, but it's okay. Let's have these names for now. So now what I need to do is I have created a couple of options and sorry option sets and options within them. Now we need to start editing these options, and we need to start building the models based on these options. So now let's say I'm going to start working with the structure part. So let's go and say I want to get into the steel brackets and say I want to edit that or create that object first. So I would go and say edit selected. Now you can see that the in this dialog box, the now editing changes into the structure and steel brackets. And you can see that my entire existing model or the base model, what I was having, is now grayed out, and I won't be able to edit them or select them. So now let's just close the dialog box and try to select any element here. No, I won't be able to select them because I am working into something called as my design options. And these design options are not going to disturb the existing model. Okay, so as I was telling, let's start with the modeling part for the option one. So that's the brackets. So now I need to place different steel columns and beams. So let's go and say I want to open the roof terrace floor plan here. Okay. Now let's say I want to add a column, and this column is okay. I want to place a 75 diameter round column, and I'm going to place the column here in this at here. Okay. Now I'll just quickly select this. Maybe I want to copy that from here. Maybe I'll just put it at some distance, and again I'll just copy that. Yeah. Okay, so now I know that you know I have placed this. I can see that in my 3D. I have my steel columns placed. So now let's say I want to copy this elements. Let's say copy them, constrain, and I'll have a multiple copy. Let's take it from here. Let's say I want to put the second one here in this. Maybe I want to place the third here, and another one here. So I have four different sets of three. So I have 12 columns here. Okay. So after doing this, let's say I want to add a couple of more things to this. Maybe I want to add a beam on top of it. So now let's go into the roof terrace, not the roof terrace. Maybe I need to go to the next level because my column starts from the roof terrace and it goes up to the core, the top of core. So now I need to go into this top of core. I'll just double click on that view. Okay, it takes me to the top of core. So here I need to add the beam. So I'll go into my structure beams. Okay, now I'm going to place a round bar for the beams. Okay, and it is at the level of top of core, and I'm going to place it exactly at the center of this element. Maybe I'm just roughly selecting it and take it up to the center of this here. Okay, I hope that's good. Um, suppose so. I hope so. It's there. So I think it's marked from center to center, right? That's so. Let's see that in 3D. Now it looks good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this element and I'm going to copy that once again to all the columns. So let's copy them one by one, and that's the last one there. Okay, so I have created my structure. In this structure, I have created my steel brackets now. So once this is done, this is completed. Now let's say I'll go into my design options, and to go into design options, needn't go into manage every time, okay, because the design options would be available here at the status bar. You can see that you have design options, and this says it's the primary and the active. So now let's just click on this design option here and say I want to finish editing. Now once you finish editing, you'll come back to the main model. Now if you try to select the design option which you have done, you won't be able to select them because those are something which is within the design options, and you cannot edit them in the main model. So the main model is your building model, which is available here, which I'll be able to edit or work with. Whereas the design options, to edit or work with design options, you need to go into that particular design option, edit them, and then you have to work with them. So hope this is understood. Right. So now, now we have created this steel brackets. Now the next one is we need to create our the beams or the wooden beams for that structure part. So wooden column and beams for the structural part. Okay, now let's say I'll go into my design option now. I'll select that wooden beam. Okay, or maybe I would have set a wooden structure. Okay, let's say I want to rename that as wooden structure because that makes more sense. Okay, wooden structure. Okay. Now let's say I'll select that and I would go with edit selected. Now I know that the wooden structure is what I'm going to work with, and in your view, you can see that the steel brackets are not visible because they are another different option within this particular option set. And when you're editing or working on any particular option, the the other options within that particular set will not be displayed. So let's close this one. Okay, now let's go back to the roof terrace. Now I need to create a beam and create a wooden beam and column. So now to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use maybe an in-place modeling method, in-place modeling concept. Maybe I'm creating an in-place family here. So I'll just quickly go with my components and say I want to model in place. I'm going to create a model in place, and let me just choose a generic model maybe, or I can just go and say I'm going to create columns or beams. I can just put them into any category. Now let me just quickly put it under the columns. Okay, I'll call this as my wooden um, column. Okay, now so as you know, you have different options to create the in place elements. Now I'll go with the easiest one, which is extrusion. So I'll just quickly go with extrude, but I need to sketch it on the front face. So I'll just go and say I want to set the work plane for it, and I have already created a couple of work planes. So I'll quickly go and choose the work plane for it. Maybe the beam plane. Yes, that's the one which I have to use, and I would say okay. Now I'll open the elevation south. Yes, okay, I have the view here. Now let's say I'm going to create the wooden structure here. Now I'll just go with a rectangle and say I want to start at this point and I want to take it up like this. Okay, so I'll say I want this to be 150 mm, 150 mm, and maybe this. Sorry, this one here, I want that to be 2100. Okay, let's copy this. Maybe I want to take it for a distance of I want it for 4,000. So 4,000. Okay, that means the distance between this and this is okay 150 additional. Let's do. Okay, I'll just quickly move them. Okay, maybe I want to add. You know, I'll just quickly go and say I want to add another 150 here. Maybe the top beam part. Maybe I would say another 900. Maybe I just want to have some overhang here. So I'm just quickly creating a shape for this. Okay. Let me just delete and make this more interesting, make this part more interesting. I want to cut this. Okay. I want to turn this into a corner. Yeah, I think that looks good. So this is how I want my column and beams to be, the wooden elements to be. Now let's say since I want this to be a wooden elements, I can define some thickness for it, and I'm going to define the material also here directly here in this. So now let's say I want to put a material called as would go with wooden material, maybe cherry wood. And the extrusion is 200, end of extrusion is 200, and I'll say I want to finish this. Now I know that I have created this in the plane, which was in the front view. Now if I go back to my floor plan, you can see that that's the roof terrace floor plan. My, the beam plane was somewhere over here. So obviously when I started sketching, it started to sketch at that particular part. So I don't want my element to be at this area because I want my roofing structure to be filling this part of my open terrace, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'll just quickly go with my annotate where I'm going to dimension this element. So I'll say I want to dimension this, and I'm going to lock this dimension value. So locking this dimension value, actually constrains or actually, creates a complete, so that complete that or restriction on the dimension here, so that this dimension or the extrusion doesn't change after that. So now let's say I want to go with align tool now, and I would say I want to align to this face. I want to align this face now. So you can see that it automatically moves to that particular space there. Now I cannot keep on aligning the rest of the things. What I need to do is I need to select that, say I want to copy that. Now I cannot use a constraint in copy because if I'm going to use a constraint, it's going to move only in this particular horizontal direction. Now I want to move it in the vertical direction here, or in this along this direction. So I'll go with my, I'll just remove my constraint here and say from this part, the second one is going to be here. The third is here, and maybe the fourth one. Okay, so I have created this. Now, if you look at it in 3D views, you'll be able to see how it is. Yes, that looks okay. So now let's say I want to finish the model, and so this is my beam structure. Okay, so you can see that. So that's how it looks in this view. And in my floor plan view, I know that it's the same or almost the same areas where I place the steel brackets. Now this looks good. So now I'll go back to my design option. So I want to finish editing of this. Now once I click finish editing, it automatically moves back into the primary element, or it shows only the primary element. And you can see that you have the steel structure or the steel brackets here, right? So this is what that happens. Now, when I want to see the wooden structure, what I need to do is I need to go into my design option, select that wooden, and I have to make that as my primary. So you'll be able to see that here. Now let's move back here, and I'll keep this as my primary for now, because we'll be working with different options and different probabilities. So I'll show you how to work with it. Now the next one is in my design option, I need to create the roofing for this area. So I need to create a temporary roofing structure for this particular area. So the roofing is going to be like, let's start with the louvers. So the louvers, what we are going to do is we're going to create the louvers now, like a pergola. So I'll go and say edit, select it, and yeah, close this one. I'll once again go into the elevation. Maybe I need to open the top of core, because that's where we are going to create the right. Okay, the top of core is the flow plan where we are going to work with. Now, let's start adding the roofing elements now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start creating a pergola kind of an element, maybe from here, or maybe first I need to create some rafters or something for that. Okay, let's say I want to start the rafter. The rafters are yeah, it's in my beams. I'm going to choose the rafter. Okay, now let's say I want to place a rafter here, maybe at some specific distance. I would say let's quickly, add a dimension from here to this. Right? This is 430. Maybe I want that to be at 900. Okay, this is at 900. Okay, now I want another one dimension. I need to check that dimension also, maybe, so that when I specify some length, it's proper. So I'll just quickly select this and say this again has to be 900. So I know that this rafter is extending at 900 from this beam, and it also starts at a distance of 900 from that corner or from that part here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this one. Now in my properties here, in the properties of this particular object, you'll be able to see that there is a length where I'll specify a length of 11,750. Okay, 11,750. So yes, and that extends like this. So this is what I want. So that's the length. Now after this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create an array of the rafters. So I'll choose my rafter here. I'll go with array. So in array, you have different options. I'm going with linear and group and associate. So now I don't want the group and associate here. I would say I want to have 5 number of rafters, and say move to second, and select constraint, because I want to move it in the straight line. Okay, so I want the rafters to be placed at a distance of 990 or 900 990 mm apart. So I think that should be okay. So that looks good. So now I'll go back to my 3D view here. So in order to see how the rafters are, so the rafters looks good. Yeah. So okay. Now let's say I want to add the louvers. I have placed the rafters. I need to place the louvers, the other part of elements, other elements perpendicular to this. So I'll go with top of core once again. So let's say beam, and that beam I have my lower. Now the louvers, let's say I want to start the louvers at, I want the louvers to be placed at this point, okay, in line with this. Okay, I want it to be like this, or maybe at this one. Okay, so now I know that my louver is placed here in this one. Okay, now I need to control the length of the louver. So the length of my louver, I want that to be maybe, let's say, where's the length? Yeah, it's 5/4. Hope that's correct. Uh, no, I just need to change the positioning of it maybe so that it's. I'll just use my arrow keys, or I can use my move tool, and yeah, I can align it also. I can just say move from this part here. I want to move it towards this area. So it's something like this where it is placed. Yeah, you can see that it's within that two uh, references, and I have this. It's okay. It's within the length of the bars. Okay, now let's say I want to array these louvers. So I'll select them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to array this, and this time I would say I don't want to have a group and associate. I want to have 34 elements, move to second, and maybe the distance between the first and second, I want that to be something like 300 mm. Let's see how it looks, or else we can change that. Mm, yeah, that looks good. I think that's what I also want. Maybe if you see that, yeah, that's covered the entire area, which is which is good. Okay, so so I know that I have created my roofing structure. That's the first one, which is called as louver. Now let's say finish editing here, and you can see that you have the option, first set of options ready here. Okay, now let's make it more interesting. Let's add the second option. And before going into the second option, if you have any queries, kindly you know do update on the chat so that we'll be able to explain it to you. And kindly fill your feedback forms at the end of the session so that we understand like what your requirements are, like whether this topic was helpful for you and how good this topic was and things like that. So or to make more to make us more better in the next upcoming seminars, your feedbacks would help us more. So thank you on that. So let's continue with the session. So let's get back to the session. Say now let's say I want to create the fabric roof for this. So, or the sunscreen roof, let's say edit selected. And as I told you, the louvers will not be displayed. Yeah, let's close this one. I'll go into the top of core now. Now, I just want to create some a fabric roof or kind of a tensile roof kind of things. I want to add them between these structures. I want that to be like added between these elements. So let's say I'll go with my roof, and I'll say roof by extrusion, and the plane is, I have a roof extrusion plane here, so which is on this face. Or maybe I can also just quickly go and say pick a plane and say okay, and I'll be able to pick that plane here. So you can see that there is a would be a roof reference plane here. Okay, Okay, maybe I'll just quickly go and see. Create roof by extrusion, and the name, I would choose the roof extrusion here. And say okay. Now I'll just open the west elevation here and say yes, I want to open that. Sorry. So now you can see that it prompts me in which level you're going to create the roof, and do you need any offset on that. I'll just go and say top of core. No, I don't need any offsets. Maybe just 100, 150 mm. Maybe I'll say 100 mm should be okay. For my reference, I'm just giving it. So you can see that I have a green color line. That's the reference line. Now the 150 mm reference line. Now let's start creating the shape of the roof. I'll say I want to have arc. This I want to start at this point. Okay. And I want to take it to the mid of this. And maybe something like this should be okay. Okay. Now I'm going to continue with that arc. So from this point here, I would take it to the mid of this. And yeah, okay, with this. Now again, I'm continuing the arc till this endpoint, the outer endpoint here. Okay, I have created that, the tensile roof, the shape. So now let's say I want that to be a fabric roof. Actually, I have edited this with some material. So I have created a material with the thickness, and that's what we are going to apply here for this. So a sunscreen fabric, I would say finish this. So you can see that it's created this fabric roof. Now it actually goes to that extent. Now I don't want to take it up to that. Maybe I would say I want to stop it with this area. That's the area which we are actually working with. So that's exactly the, you can see that the columns, maybe I'll take it slightly outside the columns and stop them. Maybe here also, let's just slightly adjust it in order to put it here on the screen. Okay, now you can see that I have created this roof. Hope this is correct. No, I just need to move it slightly inside. Okay, that is my reference. Yeah, that should be okay. So, so I'm being more precise on that, so to make my design look good. Okay, so this is the fabric roof what we have, right? So I'll go back to my design options, say yes, finish editing of my fabric or sunscreen roof. Now I go and get back to this. So I have created all the 4 different options, and the 2 different option sets are completed. But what I'm able to see is the primary options in each, set. Now this is where we need to create some probabilities, and what we are going to do is we are going to showcase it to our client. So now let's quickly go and say this 3D view. I'm going to say duplicate this. I'm going to duplicate the view detailing. Okay, I would rename this as my option 1, right? So again, I would rename that, or maybe duplicate the view first and then rename it as option 2. Okay, Now let's add a couple of more design options. I'll rename that as option 3, and again I'm duplicating it as an option 4. Okay, rename that to option 4. So now I know that I have 4 different views where I'm going to have 4 different options now. Now, how to control that and how to set the different options. Now, in my option 1, if I go and say in my design option, this has to be the primary and this has to be the primary. Now, if I go into the second option and change this primary, so what really happens is, if I make this as my primary, you can see that that element would be visible. If I make this as primary, I'll be able to see them. So based on the element which is primary, your view has to be, in your view, you'll be able to see them. But I have to create a probability here with 4 different options or mix and match things so that my client understands more better how this is going to come up and what he needs to choose and things like that. So I'm not going to go into design options now where I'm going to set the primary and the secondary elements. So let's just close this. I'll go into my, let's say data. I'll go into my visibility graphics from view tab. Go into my visibility graphics. So here you can see that you have a new tab here called as design options, and you have 2 design option sets. Okay. In my option 1, that is the view 1, what I want is I want to have the primary elements in both. So I want to have, for the structure, I want to see the steel brackets, and for roofing, I want to see the louvers. So I would just say apply and okay with that. Right. So this is option 1. Now, in my option 2, what I want is, again, I'll go into visibility graphics, design options for this. Here, I want to have the steel brackets for the structure and the sunscreen roof or the fabric roof. So now I have 2 different, probabilities. Now the third one, I'll go here, say again. Here the structure is going to be the wooden structure and the roofing is going to be lower. Say okay, right? And the fourth option, so I'll just go and say want to have the structure to be wooden and the roofing to be sunscreen or the fabric. So now I can see that. Now let's quickly tile these views. Okay, here I have this as one option, this as option 2, this as option 3. Now, and I can okay, this, so the I have all the 4 different options with me now. So I can just quickly showcase this to my client, and he'll be able to choose from this. So once he finalizes, any particular thing, then instead of having the views, what I can do is I can have the in my 3D view. In my 3D view, I'll just open that 3D view now. Okay, so let me just take it out. Okay, so in my 3D view, what I would do is I would say design options, and I would say the wooden structure is the primary element here and the louvers is the primary element. If that's the option my client has chose, so I would make them as primary, and the rest of the things I can remove it off, or I can just forget about that. So is that clear? So hope you understood about the design options and how to work with design options. So maybe if you have any questions, you can put it up. So you also have my contact details here. You can get in touch with me through the number, or you can put an email, or you can drop an email to me. So I'll be glad to help you out on design options or any topics on that, or for further training, online training sessions, or learning softwares through online, or understanding different things, working on projects and things like that. Yes, we'll help you out on the. And thanks for attending the session, and kindly do fill your feedback forms, and that would help us in giving you better and more detailed things for you in later stages of this. So thank you once again. Thank you all.